Right, so we're live.
We're live. And as people come in, maybe we could take a reflection on why we've called this event Britain Recalculates and think about some of the imagery that you've chosen as well, Laura.
Yeah, I think this is exactly where people, customers, consumers are at the moment, really getting kind of quite thinky about how much they can spend, where they can go, what even they can afford to care about, things like charity, sustainability, even local community. Like, is that within your bandwidth at the moment?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. We've seen some very big movements on those metrics. Today, we're going to look at all of that, of
Hmm.
course, but I think more importantly, spend really quite a lot of time thinking about what brands should be doing about it here and now. Laura, a lot of people will know us, but also I think we've had record numbers of new people subscribing to the webinar today. So why don't we reflect just a moment on who we are, introduce ourselves. So I'll go first.
Hmm.
I'm Alison, founder of Kokoro. I've been doing this for a very long time and started this study with you way back in lockdown, when at that time I was looking after the numbers, you were looking after the qualitative part of it.
Yes, so my name's Laura. I'm an insight director at Kokoro, and as Alison says, have been kind of on the inside of this since day one. We're now in year seven, and I think the sort of privilege to have seen that whole change with the nation and really understand where people are at has been very exciting.
Yeah. I thought it would be nice to reflect on what we believe
Mm.
as individuals and what we bring, I guess, to our work. And it's captured there in a phrase, isn't it? The future shows up in feelings first. What do we mean by that? It's a nice phrase, but what does it actually mean?
That I think before people even are sort of that cognizant of something, maybe are even talking about it, certainly have changed what they buy or where they go, how they behave. There's an initial feeling, and that's what changes. And I think if you can spot that, and I think that's something that we have become exceptionally good at over the last 6, 7 years, as soon as it appears, you are instantly ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, and it is a study that takes place every single week of the year. And we really do believe that by looking at those feelings on such a regular basis, it's given us visibility further and further into the future. We also thought it would be useful. I know anyone who does subscribe to us would know all of what we do. But as I say, there's a lot of people today listening who don't subscribe to our service. And so I thought it would be useful for us to reflect on kind of the big three strands of it. Laura, why don't you talk through Signal?
Yes, absolutely. So every Thursday, a kind of signal, a pulse, lands in your inbox. It's not just what the nation are feeling, it's what they're going to do next. And I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because we've got all sorts of different sized subscribers in terms of their businesses and their internal teams. But even our biggest subscribers with some, really, really, really big kind of headcount teams, huge scale, all of that sort of thing, they would struggle to deliver this at that speed and pace and really love this idea of being kind of constantly in tune, never blindsided and never kind of tone deaf.
That's right. Fieldwork Monday, Tuesday, delivered of a Thursday. The middle strand is we look at a seasonal kind of picture of the year. We are dissected every single week of the year and we're able to say what exact emotion, feeling brands should play to on each one of those 52 weeks. Now, it's interesting, Laura, this is the bit of our proposition that always gets the ravest of
Hmm.
reviews. And I think it's because we've done something that a lot of people try to do, but because we've got such rich information, there's just a beautiful depth to it. And I think human understanding that I think instantly someone can say, oh, we've tried and haven't actually quite managed to do that in the
Yeah.
same way.
Yeah, it's the emotional tone at every stage, isn't it? So it's the often the unsaid. And so many brands had tried to put those sorts of calendars together, but they end up being just that, calendars, rather than an actual
Yeah.
playbook of how to speak to people.
Tell us about the final bit, the shift element.
Yeah, absolutely. These are kind of inspirational reads, a video grounded in commercial reality. They're always kind of an emerging need, a kind of switch that is coming for consumers. And we absolutely pride ourselves on staying ahead of the curve there and helping people be first in the know.
Yeah, so you put those three elements together, and every week you understand the signal from the nation when it comes to kind of seasonal planning. you have absolutely the right material for that. And then in any co-creation ideation session, you've got this sort of inspiration
Mhm.
as well. So if that is what we do, just a quick reminder of how we do it.
Yes, I mean, it's phenomenally robust, most robust consumer study in the UK. We're on year 7 now. We speak to 2,000 people every single week. So we've now got this incredible baseline of 650,000 interviews. Of course, it's not just data, there's real sort of stories and real people, real conversation at the heart of this with our 50 household community. And I think importantly, the longitudinal nature of this, we've been in it since that first lockdown. So we really know what is a twist, what is a mini sort of a storm, a kind of corner versus what is a step change.
Yeah, what will go back to normal and what is genuinely kind of a new chapter in the story of the nation. Laura, I've got a headline there, born of crisis. The crisis was the
Mm.
pandemic. Everyone kind of turned to us and said, we don't know what's going on. We started this study. It was going to be for 12 weeks. It now is an absolute full-blown kind of almost monster
Mhm.
of a program. It's been built in flight, absolutely collaborated and evolved to meet the needs. And I think you often reflect just on how many different sort of brands use this service.
Yeah, absolutely. It sort of turns up in every kind of corner of people's lives. These are brands who don't want to be blindsided, who need to make sure that they're kind of constantly relevant and resonate. And so they come from almost every corner of how consumers and customers can spend.
Yeah, and it's brought together on a platform where you can completely self-serve every single question, use AI to kind of understand the implications for your brands, and of course, get access to every single report we have ever written. Okay, so that is our journey, what we do, how we do it, our beliefs as a business. Let's just reflect on the journey of the rest of today, what we're going to talk about. And really, there are sort of 3 areas we'd like to reflect on today. The first is we're going to take a step backwards. We're going to look at the signals, the big macro world around us. We've talked for quite a long time about storm and slump. We believe we're in a slightly different era of that, storm and slump 2.0. We're going to then, true to kind of our mantra, understand the feelings attached to that, because as we say, if we understand those feelings, we get a really good steer about what is going to come next, but more importantly, what is going to be the right brand response to those feelings. And essentially, we've got 6 individual responses which can be laddered up into 2 macro themes. So that is what we're going to talk
Mhm.
about today. Laura, I would like you to briefly narrate our journey of the
Mm.
last 6 years.
Yes, this is the last sort of 6 years of ours, and everybody's listening lives. We've got net optimism here. Now, we did have a study similar to this in terms of the question, but not the scale, pre-2020. So we know that net optimism used to sit fairly consistently around 45%. We have not been anywhere near that over this period. Now, we've had sort of some big phases. Each point there's been a sort of trigger point to move to the next phase. And I think this is what we mean when we say we know a difference between a twist in the tail versus a step change in the feel of the nation. We started plunged into lockdown, pandemic, kind of health crisis. We moved out of one kind of moment of crisis into the next. And of course, that was money with the cost of living crisis, ending there with the kind of government in disarray. We moved through a period of stabilising, more the absence of bad, maybe, than the presence of good. We have a really brief period of hope there in the blue. The election was announced and there was a kind of promise of change. Now, soon after the result of that election, we had riots across the nation and we entered this period of storm and slump that we have been in for a long time. I guess the point is at every single point, recovery was interrupted.
Yeah, absolutely. And never got anywhere near that, therefore, the
Mhm.
45%. Reflecting now, we've added on the sort of last 6 weeks to that, the purple period at the end there, started with the Iran war and what we are now calling Storm and Slump 2.0. We think this is really quite a different feel to it. Not only is it kind of a storm on top of a storm, and like it is leading to a level of exhaustion, but I think absolute concern in the nation as well.
Mhm.
It's also interesting, Laura, I was thinking about that. The hope phase was Starmer, the arrival of Starmer, the prospect of that, and the hope of change at that moment really what we're now seeing at the end of that purple is him in a very precarious position
Mm.
in next to no time as well. So we are in a different phase, calling it Storm and Slump 2.0. Laura, there are these two opposing forces
Mm.
at play. Tell us about them.
Yes, storm and slump. So storm is the kind of external roar, which has been loud. Lots of kind of unwelcome, overwhelming news from kind of political instability to kind of wildcard leaders to AI. And then the absolute kind of antithesis of that, slump, almost no change, not enough movement, my life still feeling too similar. And that's all kind of underlined really by economic factors. And I guess that was storm and slump. Now the 2.0 version is even greater dissonance because they both kind of level up and level down. We've got storm, stacked storm. So Trump and war moves that to a new period of ferocity and velocity. And then the slump, we've got yet another moment of more inflation and yet another kind of sensation of, another year where I'm not going to be able to move things in the right direction.
And even worse than in the right direction, kind of
Losing
probably a
ground.
kind of a step backward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
So that leads to the question, doesn't it? What is the feel of that for the individual consumer?
Mm,
And of course, when we say individual consumer, that is your customer.
yes.
So we have identified five feelings that we think are very to the fore at this moment in time. The first is a feeling that we are passengers in this world around us. So our sense of agency is very much undermined. We present this evidence on this chart here. It looks at net trust ratings in the US government, and we can see that they are at an all-time low, apart from the riots back in 2020. So very, very low. We believe that Trump has started a war. As a nation, we're not positive towards the war, and we see ourselves as the people who are going to have to bear the brunt of it, and for really quite a long period of time. So we put up a political chart here. But Laura, this isn't about politics.
No, this is about our own sensation of being in control. And we as humans hate not feeling in control. And I think this is a moment whereby the world feels way beyond what we could even picture as being within that sphere of control. We are absolutely not in the driver's seat. And I think the result of this is we shrink, we kind of pull back, we seek to sort of play small, kind of protect ourselves, literally like survive the journey.
Okay, so feeling number one. Feeling number two is a sensation of our resources sort of melting. We put up two charts here, but really they add up to a single story. One is about our savings, which have plummeted over recent times. And I think that does reflect just how on the edge people were in terms of their finances. So it's not taken very much inflation to go back into the system to really hit that sort of safety buffer. The second is the proportion of people who've missed a payment in the last week, and we can see that is at a record high, higher even than in the cost of living crisis. So very suddenly, abruptly, almost from nowhere, Laura, the buffer has gone.
Yeah, and that buffer was very hard earned. We did some very difficult things for a long time in order to secure that. So there's a sense of loss, of course, from that. And I think there's a sense of exhaustion from, once again, kind of money and the squeeze is at the forefront of our minds. But this is way more serious than that, I think. This is a sensation of having kind of run out of runway. We literally have kind of fewer cards to play, fewer options. Every single purchase gets scrutinized, subscriptions questions, next moves questions. And I think once again, brands find themselves in a position of having to re-earn their space in their wallets.
Yeah. Okay, third feeling is of the world, our world specifically, shrinking around us. Now, I think the truth is it's been shrinking for some time. We've lived a very simple life, as you say, mitigating actions to try and kind of balance the books. But we find ourselves now suddenly with our physical life having shrunk very considerably. We look at this chart here, the cost of petrol puts me off traveling. We've got over 50% of the nation saying that. And I think as of this morning, oil is back up to $100 a barrel, considerably up from where it was. So as life gets smaller, that equates to a smaller life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Fewer trips out, whether that's just for kind of errands, work stuff, all the good stuff in life, like days out. We're just leaving the house less. I guess the impact on us is our lives literally have shrunk. We've got fewer stories to tell, less stimulation. But I think also what we're willing to engage with, what we're willing to spend on. I mean, this poses big challenge for a lot of brands, I think. If you require people going places, this is a problem. I think also, there's always kind of another side. I think this is a very important chart for anyone, any brands who benefit from local or kind of home. But yes, once again, our worlds have changed.
Yeah, absolutely. We even turn up, don't we? If we're walking now rather than driving, it's just harder to carry things. That's
Mm,
an implication of what we can buy as well. So our world has shrunk. Okay, the fourth feeling is of wanting to mute the world
mm,
and everything around us. And this might surprise people. It's the number of people on this chart that have socialized at home in the last week. What we have seen is a very significant downturn in that over recent weeks. And this is in some ways surprising, isn't it? Because you would think we're scared about the world out there. What we desperately want to hang on to is kind of our nearest and dearest. And in some ways, that doesn't have to be expensive to do that.
No, absolutely. We've learned tricks to make that affordable. Having people over for just a kind of cup of tea, some cake, not necessarily, a meal, everybody bringing things. We've absolutely learned the language and the tricks and the tactics to make that happen. Incidentally, during lockdown, we promised ourselves, each other, we would never miss another moment to get together. So it is sobering, I think, to see these numbers here. We are pulling back from each other. And of course, there is a money undercurrent there. I think we start doing mental maths on how much that might cost, and then I'm going to have them back round. Those sorts of things. But I don't think it is just about money. This is about the energy to face into this sort of thing, to have conversations, to talk about things, to face into maybe other people's problems, things not going well for people. And I think this is another moment where we've got a proof point of Britain turning inward. We're withdrawing from people we love. And I guess if I can't even get you round for a glass of wine, Alison, what
You're
chance
really in
has
trouble.
Fran got of getting your attention?
You
I
are
think
really
it's
in
a problem.
trouble there. Okay, so the physical world has shrunk and kind of our social world has shrunk as
Mm,
well. Okay, the final thing is around our sense of self, our status. And the sad truth is we feel behind where we should be. This is a sobering chart. It looks at not only what we feel, but what we feel and then go on to hide from other
mhm.
people. Every metric is up on the year, and some of these are affecting millions of people, many, many millions of people
Mm.
on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's incredible to think that these are things that we're hiding from people. Everything on there is up on the year. Nearly a quarter of us feeling trapped, one in five of us feeling lonely. People are struggling. Your customers are struggling and they aren't telling anybody.
Yeah, they're not telling you, they're not
Mm.
telling their friends. In some ways, Laura, I think we're seeing a lot of evidence. They don't always know it themselves as well,
Mm.
the impact of this. Okay, so this is where we're at. We're at Storm and Slump 2.0 after many, many twists and turns over the last 6 years. It's leading to a sense of dissonance. We don't know how to cope, but these are the feelings that are emerging from that. We feel passengers in this world. We feel like our resources that we've worked really hard to try and kind of build up are melting very fast. Our physical world is shrinking. Our social world, we're wanting to mute. And we are quietly hiding from other people that we feel desperately behind where we
Mm.
want to be. So Britain is somewhat adrift and it's trying to work that out. It's trying to
Mm.
recalculate all of those things. And we think it's really important that brands respond and have come up with some, I think, very significant ways, not just to commercially leverage this situation, but to genuinely help people who need help at this moment in time. So we've got two big macro zones of help. The one is kind of show up for us. This is a really important point. Show up and be empathetic. Don't just try and gloss over and cheer
Mm.
us up.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not a time to pretend everything's fine or paper over the cracks. I think we can instinctively feel things aren't fine. We can kind of smell it. So this idea of you've got this is a very difficult one to stomach and really does struggle for kind of tone and relevance at this point.
Yeah. Okay, so we look at three big areas, and I think the first area under this is say it, life has changed. Wake up to
Mm.
that. Because actually, back in the highlight and the height of the cost of living crisis, the papers were full of life is
Yeah.
difficult. There is nothing now. Our papers today are dominated by Starmer, which I know is a significant story, but I think most people just want it to go away.
Mm.
Be the brand that recognizes that life has changed. And I think significant charts here just to reflect on before Laura breaks it down in more detail. Got a chart here on book to holiday. It is at a 4 year low. A lot of people are not going to have summer holidays this year. Yet we can see on the left-hand side that most people agree that a holiday is where you rebuild your relationships with
Mm.
your nearest and dearest. So that is a significant change.
Yeah, really, really, absolutely is. I think, and some of these changes, the big action really is to stare down these changes, kind of bring them into the light. I think, give people permission to feel low. We are missing really important parts of life. There is a sort of a grief, a kind of sadness that comes with that. So be honest. This isn't you've got this. They really haven't. Don't glamorize the grind. I think there have been moments where it has been appropriate to kind of create a bit of blitz spirit and a bit of excitement, but actually, frugality isn't fun now. It is just the grind. It is the way we have to survive. So it's about much more sort of matter of fact than it is about fun, I think. And help people say no without feeling like they failed. This is a very, very, very hard no. Once you've done it, there's a grief from it. Of course there is, but you're kind of the other side of it. And so I think help people do that without feeling ashamed.
Walk in a shop and cancel a
Yeah.
subscription, trade down, just make that feel okay, feel savvy thing to do. Okay, the second thing that we think brands should do is change the time horizon. Now is a moment to sell today, not some aspirational day in the future. We give evidence of it here in this chart where people are finding happiness. Now, for a long time, this has been a chaotic world, and what we've wanted to do is have a tidy house, our own house in order. That continues, but what we can see a real tone down very suddenly of is wanting to do big home improvements or embrace new and different things. So if that's the now today horizon
Mm.
people have, Laura, what should brands do to respond to that?
Well, I think one major thing that we know is that we love order, that is something that we can have and that we want, I think. And so if you can offer a moment of kind of predictability, of joy and kind of ritual and routine, I think that is extremely powerful. Making today manageable has real power at the moment. I think also what this shows us is like reframe the aspiration. Of course, we'd love in an ideal world, some of those things, home improvements, new things, but it's just not achievable. So make us feel good about the things that we can have. And I think also make that comeback easy. We're going to be getting off the wagon of a lot of things. Streaks are a sort of privilege many of us cannot afford. I think making re-engagement and re-entry easy, kind of lowering the bar, even making it feel like a bit of a non-thing is important at the moment.
Okay, third response. We think brands should try and be very, very real.
Yes.
This world is chaotic. It feels unreal. We've got AI making it feel synthetic as well. So, what we want is very real experiences, affordable, real experiences. We put this chart up in the middle here. This is the proportion of people who've been high street shopping in any one week. The other line is the number of people who've used a coffee shop. And it's interesting, isn't it, Laura, how much we've hung on to go into coffee shops and where the high street can be a bit of a miserable mirror on our own lives. A coffee shop is a very affordable kind of mood lift.
Yeah.
What can brands take from that?
I think there's lots of lessons to take from this that can be applied in sort of a myriad of kind of sectors and services. First is be really, really human, sound human, feel human, warm, kind of calm, even just being really kind of plain spoken, like straight talking English, that kind of sensation of kind of just real that people find there. Give people proof they can touch. So many of these spaces feel so tactile, so kind of sensory. This is about known faces, hands doing real things. It's a real sense that you can kind of trust in this, and also kind of restoring connection. These are spaces that we go for kind of little moments of lift. And in a world where the big moments are slipping away, whether that's holidays, if we talked about, or days out, kind of big occasions, these are kind of quite magic and can take us a long way. So give people a bit of closeness, a bit of a sense of togetherness that they can afford, that is accessible.
Yeah. Okay, so they're the sort of three strands that
Mm.
we think people want, but the brands sort of adding up to that sort of show up for people, don't gloss over. The second strand is that we think it's brands' responsibility now to look ahead to what are going to be the problems that consumers are going to be faced with in the coming months and protect them. Now, we know they're braced, they're in brace
Mm.
position. But being in brace position is not the same as being ready for it. And we think in that disconnect, there's a lot of opportunities for brands. And I think just to bring that to life for people before we move on, I think we've all known that AI is coming, particularly in our sector, we've known it's
Mm.
coming, but now feels like a real moment where we're feeling the impact of it.
Mm.
So there's a difference between brace, anticipating it, and actually living
Mm.
it. And that's where we think brands need to focus. So the first thing is to steady us, to help us feel calm in knowing that we can cope in any day in the future. Now, this chart I think is a really important chart. It's ready to take on new challenges. We were definitely not in that place right at the beginning of this journey, but we've steadily sort of grounded ourselves, learned to cope with every twist and turn. This later sort of battering has really flattened that
Mm.
down. So we're sort of going to wince, I think, every time we're faced with something that doesn't feel familiar enough or is challenging in terms of how much newness we are being asked to embrace.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't ask us to do hard things. I think feel familiar is so important, isn't it? This makes kind of newness kind of palatable if there's an element of it, so we already see our kind of selves in it. This isn't a moment to kind of relaunch, kind of reinvent. This is an element, this is a time to kind of tiptoe as much as possible. I think reducing decisions and familiarity I think does absolutely kind of help alongside that. But there's another element to reduce decisions, isn't it? It's about kind of simplicity, steadiness, kind of confidence, really kind of showcasing that. And I also think there's an element of just like this is a very, very powerful time to give back to people who stay with you. The feeling of getting something new without having to do anything, an upgrade. The app's got new features. There's kind of new content, that kind of thing where nothing's really asked of you. You just get given it is so incredibly powerful at this sort of time. That really is that steadying sense of there are kind of good
Yeah.
people and good things.
So help us cope in this current position with things that
Yeah.
are going to put us on high alert. Okay, the second strand is for certain we are going to miss things this summer. And you should be able to predict what they are, and particularly anyone with the playbook would be able to spot every single one of these, but be the solution at that moment in time.
Mm.
And again, we just put up the holiday bookings on the left-hand side. They are very low compared to where they have been. And in terms of what people are looking for, then they're going to be looking for a lot of holiday clubs over the summer as an antidote to this.
Yes, absolutely.
And in fact, we've got a
We've
chart that
got,
absolutely demonstrates that here, haven't we? So holiday bookings down, holiday clubs at a 5-year
yeah.
high. And of course, they cost money, don't they, holiday clubs? So it's
Hmm.
very interesting that they are trying to make sense of what they can see as a pain point.
Yeah,
There's going to be
absolutely.
other pain points though,
There's
Laura.
going to be other pain points. There's going to be pain points exactly like this. We always talk about this as being a nightmare. So we're going to still talk about this as being a nightmare, but it's going to level up again this year. We know that. And so I think being the brand that's there before people know they're going to need it is so important. So in terms of this example, I think there are going to be so many times that days could blur into one and this year could get away from us and the summer could get away from us. Help people affordably kind of notice life and notice kind of what's happening. Stop letting that kind of all blur together. I think that the design for the format we're going to be, it's going to be smaller groups, it's going to be local, it's going to be more affordable. Help people spot possibilities that hit those sorts of notes. And I think also this summer, we need to take the sting out of some of the things that are going to be missing or on sort of low level, like, proms, weddings, summer holidays, all of those sorts of things. These are big moments we compare back to previous us, to celebs, to all of that sort of thing. And we think, oh my goodness, our life looks a bit blank. Help us create memories in different ways.
Okay. So that's see ahead to the future, see the pain points, and have a solution
Mm.
in place for them. Okay, the third one is about be the safety net. Life is going to go wrong for some people over the next 6 months. They're not necessarily going to see that come in. You can be the brand there to protect them in those moments. We look specifically on this chart at the job market, where we can see the nation is increasingly fearful about what is happening around jobs. But when we ask people about their own job, there is no change in the number of
Mm.
people who are fearing redundancy. So, in that delta, There are people who are going to be caught off guard and at that moment incredibly worried about their money. And we know from the right-hand side that those two things are the things that are going to make people feel most vulnerable.
Mhm.
So, in terms of providing a safety net, Laura, what three things can brands do?
I think this is about helping them focus on what matters. This can be kind of completely overwhelming and laden with noise. So I think what actually can't wait, where does the focus need to be is a big thing. Simplify next moves, next steps, again, in that overwhelm, show a kind of path of what's possible, what's next. And I think making help easy to accept. Make sort of lower the bar to entry of whether that is kind of getting information, asking for a pause, whatever the help is, make that feel accessible.
Okay, so just to summarize where we've been, the big macro picture is the stacked storm, the settled slump, a heightened sense of dissonance. We've got five feelings that emerge from there that we feel passengers rather than in control, our resources are shrinking, the physical world is shrinking, and we don't want to put our sort of social world on mute. And you add that up, and we feel behind where we really want to be in life. If we have to macro two brand responses, it's now is the time to show up and be honest, don't just try and cheer people up. And the second is to look ahead. People are in crouch position, but that doesn't mean to say they're ready. You can be the brand that helps them live through what is going to be a very difficult period.
Mhm.
So that is where we've got to,
Mhm.
Laura. What we would like to finish off with is just reflections on kind of brands and how they might respond to this, internally kind of respond to it. And I think the first thing to say is our subscribers already know a lot of this. Today is a summation. They'll get all of the slides. Of course, what will also feed into them is a lens which is about their target market. So they get even more granularity. For everybody else, I think just some reflections. I think anybody who's here today is here today because they know the truth of what we're saying, that this is another very uncomfortable moment for the nation. But I think there is a world of difference between, and I'm not saying this lightly, vaguely knowing that things are hard and precisely knowing
Mm.
what the nation is feeling. And even if you know what the nation is feeling, there's also a big leap, I think, to know what you should do about it. And I think we bridge that gap. And I think just the final twist on that is even if you listening have got brilliant instinct and you know everything that we have said today, I think you need evidence. You need really strong evidence to move organizations to do things when they're crouching as well, I think, at this
Mm.
moment in time. So I think compelling data helps.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to email all of you today. You'll get a copy of the recital recording. There's some exclusive content for our subscribers as well. Please do reply to that email. Do not be frightened to reply. We're very friendly and we're very fast as well. And I think whatever your situation, there is absolutely a way into this. I think sometimes we get a sort of perception that this is beyond people's budgets. If you think that, you are absolutely wrong. There are really affordable access levels to this subscription, lots of different access points. If you're not in charge of budget but want help petitioning for it, we have got some great kind of tools to help you do that. So please do get in touch on that count as well. And also, if you're a consultant and thinking this isn't for you, again, I think that would be an error. We can absolutely help you use this to kind of sharpen up your work. I also think we should back our own show up, don't cheer up thesis, Alison. And if you find yourself at this moment in time on the wrong side of everything that we've talked about, whether you're facing redundancy or in between roles at the moment, we would love to help you. Since day one of this study, when we were plunged into lockdown and furlough and all of those sorts of things, we have supported people who are looking for their next move or find themselves between roles. So we do have a free access subscription for people who aren't currently working. So get in touch with us. The world of insight is difficult right now, and we think data like this can really arm you so well for any interviews, any career conversations.
Okay, well, I think that was beautifully put, Laura. So I hope people do reply to your email. So thanks for showing up for us today. It actually does mean a lot because we put a lot of work into this. So thank you for coming along. Take care.
We'll see you soon.